Ladies and gentlemen, it seems as if the thing that I've been trying to tell people for years has finally come true. The gun has finally jammed. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So, obviously, Peacemaker Season 2 finale came out on Thursday, and there has been a lot of talk about it. And I have said multiple times ever since Gunn took control of DC Studios that this thing was going to end up being a gigantic mess. And it has, shockingly. Not really. Look, it's so bad to the point where Gunn is being asked on, social media, how the hell the Peacemaker Season 2 finale leads into the rest of the DCU and sets up Man of Tomorrow. And his only response was, the things that are happening with Lex and Flag, where Chris is at the end of the episode, etc. Like, that's how we're sort of leading up to this thing. I don't get it. I mean, I've been trying to tell people for years, ever since he took the job, this is going to end up in a gigantic mess. Gunn has sort of trapped himself within this formula that he can't seem to, stretch out of. He can't really get out of it. And, as a writer, I understand it. I write superhero projects of my own, sort of fan fiction, right? I get it. And sometimes the story is just so, when you're writing something, like, I'm writing a Daredevil series of my own, right? And it's been very hard for me to sort of get out of my own bubble. But I've sort of started to put the dots together on how I can make it work, right? Gunn, with his formula, he just likes to keep it the same, and I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. All I know is that we need something new, fresh. And I've said again and again and again and again and again, I said it when Creature Commandos came out. I said it when Superman came out. I said it when, Peacemaker first came out. I was like, this formula, this sort of newfound family formula, the humor, everything, it's going to not work one day. And it finally hasn't. Granted, I haven't watched Peacemaker Season 2 because it's just not my cup of tea. I don't like that show, right? I just don't. But, I mean, I can even look at it from, a writing standpoint. And, I'll admit, from the things that I saw, some of the writing was decent. It was okay. I just don't like that interpretation of the character. And, I believe, Cena has even come out and said that Gunn straight up told him to not read the comics because of how different Peacemaker is in the show. Besides, and in the comics and everything, it's just sort of its own thing. And I tried telling people when Gunn, first came onto the scene at DC, I was like, I love the Guardians movies. The Guardians movies are some of the favorite, it's some of the favorite things that, the MCU's ever done. I love those movies to death. They were cult classics in my house. Growing up, they were always playing, especially the first Guardians movie. But you could even feel that ball of yarn start to stretch a little bit. And, it's starting to come apart, especially with Guardians 2. And then Gunn sort of redeemed himself with Guardians 3. And then for whatever reason, Gunn has just made flop after flop after flop, and I don't know why. And especially with the new reports coming out that Superman flopped at the box office and lost the studio a crap ton of money. I mean, Zaslav and Warner Brothers surely have to be looking at this and going, we need something new. Whether it's bringing Zack back, right? And Zack, he has his own formula, right? But he sort of somehow makes it work with every single project. And he sort of is able to branch out and do other things. 300, Sucker Punch, Rebel Moon, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's all its own thing. Gunn, you can feel as if it's the same movie every single time. The only thing that people can really bring up about Zack's movies is slow motion, and that's it. With Gunn, it's the humor, it's the pacing, it's everything. Everything is sort of the same about it, and it's repetitive, and it's getting boring, and it's getting not fun anymore. The next project that we have coming up is Lanterns, and that is the first thing that Gunn will have not been directly involved with since taking the job. And I just hope that show is good. This is Green Lantern we're talking about. This is an iconic character. We can't mess that up. And if this show is good without Gunn's direct involvement, we don't need him to be directly involved in anything else. We need him overseeing the universe. We need him, giving his input here and there. We don't need him writing and directing every single project. I would have been perfectly fine if Man of Tomorrow had a different director and a different writer. Totally different. Especially if we're doing a villain like Brainiac, which is such a complex and layered villain, right? Like, we need someone who will be able to tackle that with the respect that it deserves. I don't think Gunn is personally going to do that. No offense to James Gunn. Just saying. Maybe, I'll bite my words whenever the movie comes out, right? But as of right now, I just don't think it'll work. I don't think the DCU has been working in general ever since it started. I mean, it's been so confusing, and Gunn has come out and said so many things, and has said this thing, but taken this thing back, and has said this thing, and, the formula and the way that things have been operating within the DCU is starting to get really, really tiresome. It's starting to get really, really... it's starting to piss me off, actually, because I just don't see how we go from here. I just don't. I don't know where we essentially go from here after Peacemaker Season 2. And like I said, I enjoy Gunn's projects. Or at least the projects that he did in the MCU. The Guardians movies were great. And it really made you feel the emotion and everything. And in his any of his DC projects, I haven't shed a tear once. Once! I have not shed one tear in any single DC project that he's done. I don't know where that sort of passion and drive went for DC. And he claims to love these characters more than he does than the Marvel ones. Now, I don't know if that's just him talking up his ass because he's the DC CEO, right? And he has to say that. But I don't understand as to how he is so, quote-unquote, driven to these characters, but he has never been able to get me emotionally attached to them. Like, in Superman, there are a lot of scenes that are meant to play out as emotional. I didn't cry once! That's not necessarily a criticism, right? I'm just saying. One thing I will give Zack Snyder credit for, and by the way, I give him credit for a lot of things that he did in this movie, but one of the things that I will give him credit for, it was very telling where the story was headed. We obviously all knew that the story was headed towards Darkseid, and, new gods, old gods, etc. We were going to explore that whole thing, right? With Gunn, we don't know where the story is headed. And we're already, 4 projects into the DCU now? I mean, where are we headed, I mean, even in the first Avengers, and that's the first real team-up movie, we knew where it was headed. It was freaking Thanos. That's what we were building up to. We're not building up to any particular big bad or anything. Like, we don't know where it's, heading. And that's really frustrating, and that's really confusing for a lot of people, especially myself. I would have thought that Gunn would have taken a lot of the similar steps that Feige took with the MCU, which made it so successful. But he's just sort of doing his own confusing, weird thing that doesn't make any sense to me at all. We need to be having a proper build-up. And by the way, why the heck we're including Peacemaker in the mix of that build-up is insane to me. I understand it if you're doing that character properly, but that character takes everything as a joke. And if we're doing Darkseid, I mean, are we going to be having, Peacemaker making up Darkseid poop fetish rumors? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. But, as I keep on saying, I feel as if the gun has been jammed ever since, he first took the job at DC. I mean, I feel as if it was screwed from the get-go. And people just aren't waking up and seeing that. I mean, a lot of people who are very pro-gun have started to wake up now to see that the formula is starting to sort of drag and it's not really going anywhere. And that's what I've been saying for the past 3 years, guys. If you go back and look at all my videos, that is literally what I've said every single time I've talked about DC. Not just because I'm a Zack Snyder fan, but because I am a DC fan in general. I can take multiple versions of DC. I love it. I love those characters and I love that universe. And that's why I decided to make a fan film, which is currently in the works right now, Superman Last on Krypton, because I love the character of Superman and I love those characters. I'm not only saying this because it's James Gunn and not Zack Snyder. I hate it when people bring that point up. They're like, "Oh, you just want Zack back." No, I just want anybody other than James Gunn at the role of DC. I want someone else to take his place at DC, and I've always said that. Maybe keep him as an executive, maybe keep him as an overseer of the whole thing. But as a writer and director, nah, man. Go back to Marvel. And I say that in the nicest way possible. Because it seems as if he really worked well over there at Marvel and he really had a good system going. Now that this is like a new system that he's working with and everything, I mean, that gun, man. I mean, it's starting to jam, and it is not going well, and it's not looking good for the DCU at all. And, with the rumors of Warner Brothers Discovery being sold soon, I mean, it all makes sense now as to why he's fast-tracking all of these movies. He's wanting to get his stuff out more quick. And by the way, people will say, well, he has Man of Tomorrow coming up, and he's shooting that soon. And I'm like, yeah, but he can still direct that on a directorial contract. His contract at DC in general will be up next year. They can sign him on to direct the movie. He doesn't have to be the co-head of DC. Next year. It just doesn't. It's that's just not how it works at all. So that's just personally my take on it. And Mr. James Gunn, if you're watching this isn't me being mean at all. I mean, granted, you're probably not watching it, but one fan to another, right? Supposedly, we need to start cleaning some things up. I don't know I don't know what we're doing. Talk to Zach. See how well he did it. See how he made it work. Because your stuff is so genuinely confusing to me and the fans now that it's like fans who are very, fond of your work are asking for Zach to come back. That should be a little concerning, to you at least. Not to me. I knew that this was coming from a mile away. In the nicest way possible. I mean, come on. And I'm sure a lot of your friends and family have sort of told you the same thing, that, maybe we need to switch it up a little bit. And I understand stubbornness, right? I understand Gunn being stubborn. I understand that. But this level of stubbornness is insane, and I've never seen it in a creative in my life. But yeah, I shall catch you all in the next video. Take care and peace. Mr. James Gunn. We gotta change something, bud. I don't know what it is, but we gotta change it. We gotta change everything. Let's just start from scratch and start from phase 1. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know. And I don't know where you're gonna be this time next year. If you're gonna still be at DC or not. My honest opinion, you should probably get out now before you get fired. Or, peacefully removed from the position. But, or, talk to David Zaslav, or, I don't know. Something that just needs to be worked out, I guess. So yeah, this has just been my opinion on it. This has just been my take on it. I shall catch you all in the next video. Take care and peace.